Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hockey fans of all ages. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. Thank you for joining us on TikTok, TikTok on this side, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all the fun uh, places. If you're on TikTok, tap that screen, show some love. Basically, all that does is let people know that we're on. Come view us, check it out. It boosts the algorithm search and all that stuff. So it gets more eyeballs in here, more eyeballs, more conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out either on TikTok. I get them on this side, and you'll see the other comments on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Um, will appear on the screen, and I will address them as we get them. But anyway, sorry about missing last week. In fact, I'm still dealing with some of the chest congestion that I've been real sick the last like week and a half, and it really sucks. So, anyway, that this is the show. So let's talk about the game tonight, right quick. So tonight's game is Vegas and Dallas. I don't know if it's going to show or not. Things are going slow. Yeah, Restream is going slow tonight. But anyway, March 25th games tonight. Vegas to Dallas, 8 p.m. Vegas leads the series 3 games to none. We'll do a little deeper dive into the series here in a little bit, but we'll hit some news and notes from around the league. The big news is that in the NHL, we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week since I missed. But the Arizona Coyotes now are kind of homeless. I mean, they got the Mullet Arena. They're going to play there next season, but they've been banking on this bond referendum that was before the voters of Tempe, Arizona. Um, it was a very low turnout election, and the voters rejected the bond to build the new entertainment district there in Tempe, Arizona, building a 18,000 seat arena plus shops and apartments and all that stuff. Um, this is just another attempt that the Arizona Coyotes have really reached to try and get some kind of financial stability within the region. They had played in Glendale for years. Glendale is uh, a far suburb. Tempe is a little closer in, that a little more centrally located. Um, and it's fallen through. And for the first time, whenever the Arizona Coyotes have faced, they've faced a legion of issues. Whether we're talking about the idea that they play in downtown Phoenix or they play in Glendale, they get the Glendale Arena. They have the ownership issues. Owners wanting to buy them and move them. The league stepping in and saying no, we'll manage the team for a while, which they've done. They've managed the team. They do have a new owner, but does not. I have very deep political opinions about whether the public should finance sports stadiums for billionaire owners. And in this case, I'm not mad that the people of Tempe rejected this bond, but it does mean that at this point, I think it's time for as much effort as Gary Bettman put into keeping the Coyotes in Arizona. It was kind of his first big foray into a non-traditional hockey market. He's fought so hard to keep the Arizona Coyotes in the Phoenix metro area. It just hasn't worked out. So what happens now? Like I said, they're going to be in Mullet Arena on the University of or Arizona State University campus for next season. So 23-24 season. They are committed. They could probably stay another year, and I think the original plan was that they would stay the 24-25 season at Mullet, waiting for the arena in Tempe to be built. So you've got 2 years. The problem is fans don't like to go to a product that's gonna be leaving. So, really ideally, the idea is to get the Coyotes out of the metro area within the next year. So, play this final season at Mullet and then move somewhere. So pundits from around the country, from all over hockeydom, have um, been talking about where are the cities that make sense for the Arizona Coyotes? Where should they go? I think there's some very specific criteria. And we'll get to that. We're going to talk about kind of in reverse order of where I see the cities falling in the landscape of getting a team, whether it's going to be the Coyotes or not. So let's take a look at the probably the least likely teams or cities to get a team. And there's some big names on here that always come up when there's a discussion about getting a team. And in this case, I don't think it's going to happen. So um, the doubtful cities are Quebec City, Hartford. The Connecticut governor has made overtures. The Atlanta Metro, and I know hockey fans are like, why would we go back to Atlanta? We lost 2 teams. I'm wearing my Thrashers jersey. I'll talk to you all day about why the Atlanta Thrashers never worked, and why they've lost 2 teams. It's more ownership than fan base. And then a second team in the Greater Toronto area. Quebec City, everyone likes to romanticize what the Quebec Nordiques were, and for sure, you bring a team into Canada, they're gonna pack the barn almost every night. The Quebec Remparts, Canadian Hockey League, the junior team fill the barn quite regularly. The playoffs have been awesome. They put like 18,000 fans into the arena for not even minor junior league playoff game. But the problem is for this to work, it's not just fan base. Canada has fan base that's not a problem. It's having a city with enough population and enough corporate, sponsorship to keep a team viable. Canada has a big disadvantage to say like a Florida or the Texas teams or Nashville, in that they've got incredibly high taxes. So to play in Canada, you need to have you almost need to play to the salary cap, but you're almost have a hand tied behind your back unless you're one of these world class cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. It's not really sexy playing in Quebec City, although Quebec City is quite lovely. It wouldn't be sexy playing in a town like Saskatoon or Regina. Um, those are the other 2 cities I've seen bandied about in Canada. There's just not enough population nor corporate base to make that make sense. So, Quebec City, I'm going to say, is doubtful for relocation for the Arizona Coyotes, just on the fact that there's just while there's the population, there's a passionate base there. It's not there. There isn't a corporate base there that's going to support an NHL team. Hartford, much the same, and I don't even know if Hartford has the arena for an NHL team right now. And the Carolina Hurricanes moved out of Hartford because of the arena, and not being able to get an arena. I don't know. I haven't really researched too much into Harvard. I know that the Connecticut governor is trying to woo a team there, whether that's wooing a team there to encourage his legislature or the city of Hartford to fund a new arena. I don't know. um, or if they've built one since then that can accommodate NHL hockey. Wild cards there is it's right there between New York City and Boston. Will the Rangers, Islanders, and Boston put up a stink for a team being placed relatively close to their franchises right now? I don't know. They'll be the shiny new object, which might take eyes off of those teams and might draw some ire of the existing franchises in the area. The Atlanta Metro. Um, I love the Atlanta Metro. I would love to see them get another team. I enjoyed going to Thrasher games. Uh, were there nights where there were more visiting fans than home fans? Absolutely. You're going to get that in a southern city just because a lot of northern people have moved to the south because your weather sucks in the north. Just understand that. And it's warm in the south, and during the winter when hockey is being played, they're going to be living in the south where it's warmer. Um, So that's why these teams in the South make sense. Arizona, it's again, just like Atlanta's previous teams, most of their issues are self-inflicted ownership issues, and icing poor product, which keeps people from the arena, and and having a poor arena there in Glendale that was, outside of a lot of, other suburbs. Um, it makes sense for one once a week football game, 8 times a year. Doesn't make sense for 42 nights a year in a hockey arena. So there's no reason to drive all the way out to Glendale for a hockey game for a subpar team. And now that they're at the Mullet Arena, they're selling out every night, which is not hard because it's 5,000 seats. So, um, but for Atlanta, the problem is, the problem 100% for Atlanta right now is location, and they wanna build a new arena. So that's gonna be a couple years in the making. The what Kevin Weeks, the former goalie, NHL analyst, was pumping this project in South, Forsyth County. Y'all, the city name for in South Forsyth County is Cumming, Cumming. Uh I don't know. That would be kind of embarrassing, but, it's a good area. There are problems with Atlanta when it comes to public transportation. How do you get the butts to the seats? It is the very northern most suburb area of the Atlanta metro area. So, um, I mean, you can say up to Dahlonega is kind of the Atlanta metro area, but really that Forsyth County area, even though it's growing, still not it's out of the way. I would rather them go back to Phillips Arena, enhance the public transportation there in Atlanta, um, and to be able to get more butts to the seats because Atlanta is always plagued by traffic issues and all that fun stuff. It's hard to get to specific points in Atlanta, especially at 7 p.m. Anywhere from 5 to 7 p.m. in the Atlanta metro area. But I'm going to say that not gonna say Atlanta's a good choice. And then the second Greater Toronto area team, that's always been a pipe dream for a lot of Canadian hockey fans is to get well, New York's got two teams, LA's got two teams. Why doesn't Toronto, the biggest hockey market in the world, have two teams? It's a fair ask, but the problem is you got the Toronto Maple Leafs there. We'll never let you do that. And if you move it south, Buffalo Sabres are going to put their foot down because they get a lot of their fans from Southern Ontario coming across the border. So you've got two teams that will immediately put the kibosh. Uh, Jim Balsillie, the former CEO of the group that made BlackBerry phones, um, several times, including the Arizona Coyotes and the Nashville Predators, tried to move teams from their markets to Hamilton, and that was a no go for Toronto and Buffalo. So both teams will put up a stink. It will probably cost way more to buy Buffalo and Toronto off than it would be to, that makes economic sense to move a team to Southern Ontario. Um, so that, that's the reason why I don't think Greater Toronto area is going to get another team. All right, let's talk about the wild cards. These are teams I think that are plausible, but there are a couple of issues I think with each city, and that is Portland, Oregon, and Salt Lake City, Utah. Both have the population. I think both have arenas that can support hockey, at least for a while, until they can build a more hockey specific arena or, build a. Hey, what's up, Jasper? How you doing, man? It can build an arena that can accommodate both basketball and hockey, since both cities do have NBA teams um, that are better suited for both sports. Um, the reason why I call these wild cards, there's two things. I don't foresee. I mean, Salt Lake to me almost might be a better choice than Portland because really it's kind of going north from the Phoenix area, a little to the east. You'd still be able to keep them in the Central Division, but I think The problem with these is location. Portland on the West Coast, that means if you moved Arizona to Portland, you wouldn't want them playing in the Central Division. You'd want them on the Pacific Division playing Vancouver and Seattle, natural rivals. So who do you move from the Pacific Division? Do you move Vegas? Vegas is kind of the outlier of that division because you got the 3 California teams, LA, Anaheim, and San Jose, and then you would have 3 Northern Pacific teams, so the Canucks, the, Seattle Kraken, and the Portland, whatever you call them, and then you have the 2 Alberta teams. So you could move I don't think you split up the Alberta teams at all. You can't split up Calgary and Edmonton. Um, so what do you do with that? So do you move Vegas to the Central Division? Which puts a little strain on them because then, for most of the year they're in the central or they're in the Pacific time zone. Um, and most of the central is in either the central or the mountain time zone. So I don't know. You just missed me on the Hartford issue. But I'll get back to that because there is another thing that I think is gonna happen relatively soon after the Arizona Coyotes things get settled. But, uh, yeah, Salt Lake City makes a little bit more sense in that they are a little more, east, but still, um, you could keep them in the Central Division. They're a mountain time zone, so there would be it wouldn't be as taxing on the team to go to the Central Division teams. So, um but I'm just not feeling Salt Lake City. They've had problems keeping minor league teams there, and I get that minor league versus major league teams are it's hard to compare the 2, but and Salt Lake's an exploding city. I get that. There's lots of population growth there. Um, but I think the cities I'm gonna reveal here that are my top choices, um, yeah, I get you, Jasper. Yeah, you're up in Connecticut, so Um, I I live in West Virginia, man. I know what it's like to live without a hockey team. I actually became a hockey fan in the state of New Mexico, and they didn't even have a minor league team at that point. So, um, but yeah, it's hard when you got to travel states to go see a hockey game. But my top expansion cities right now are Houston, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Austin. Austin sneaks in there for one reason, and that is if the Coyotes stay for 2 seasons, Austin could either expand their current arena, to NHL levels or build a new arena, or at least have it ready to go, fairly soon after the team moves. Um, Austin is a massively growing city, lots of transplants into Austin, and, they don't have the competition for, the sports dollar that some of these other cities do. So they don't have an NBA team, they don't have an NFL team. They do have a Major League Soccer team. They don't have a baseball team, major leagues, in other words. So Austin makes some sense. It's a massively growing city, and just like with Vegas, if you can be the early mover in there, you can build a fan base that can withstand other major league cities or major league franchises moving to that city. Um, and I think Austin is really going to start getting some play, um, at least for Major League Baseball in a couple when they start their expansion again. So we'll see. Milwaukee. That Wisconsin doesn't have a hockey team is kind of a travesty. That the state of Wisconsin, at least from a college perspective, is very hockey mad. Um, the cool thing with all of these teams, all 4 of these teams, is they have almost built-in rivalry. So Milwaukee would have 2 different rivals. They're always rivals with Chicago. They're going to be rivals with mini Minnesota St. Paul, the Wild. So um, the Milwaukee Admirals do really well in the NHL. Been a franchise for many years, and have the arena that can do it, that can host hockey, and would make sense from a population standpoint, from a passionate fan base standpoint, from a city size standpoint, point as far as sponsorship. You know that the beer companies will be lining up to sponsor a hockey team in Milwaukee. So, um, moving on to Kansas City. Kansas City has that arena. They built the MCI Center back in the day when they called it the MCI Center, specifically try to woo either the Islanders or the Pittsburgh Penguins. And both of those moves were rebuffed by the NHL. The Penguins eventually got their arena, and the Islanders eventually got their arena built. They did have some trials and tribulations going back and forth to Brooklyn, but they did get their arena built eventually. So Kansas City has never been successful in the expansion front. Well, they did have an expansion team back in the '70s. It only lasted 2 seasons before they moved into Denver. The '70s were kind of a dark period when you had the WHA or WHL doing their thing, so you had competition there, and then you had economic issues that really caused a lot of kind of the last real big uh, times where sports teams folded was the late '70s, and so Kansas City packed up and moved to Denver. A few years later, they packed up from Denver and moved all the way over to New Jersey. So, and then finally, but Kansas City, great fan base. They don't have an NBA team, so you don't have the competition for the sports dollar outside of the Chiefs games. Um, I think a team in Kansas City makes a lot of sense from that perspective. You have that instant rivalry with St. Louis. You're gonna have the I-70 clash there. Um, uh, good population, lots of corporate sponsors, lots of money in the Kansas City area. One of the richest counties in the country is there in the Kansas City area. So um, there's money there to be had. Um, and really, without an NBA team, I think a team in Kansas City would do really well this time, um, as opposed to what happened in the '70s. And really, when the Kansas City and Washington joined the league back in '74, I believe, it was really a response to they're just putting teams out there. They're expanding because they didn't want the WHA to take that territory. So they were just plopping teams all over the place. And they dropped one in Atlanta, they dropped one in Kansas City, and because of the economics, because of that time, it didn't make sense for those teams to be there, and they eventually moved because of ownership issues and um, you know struggling from the get go. They were just expanding too fast at that point. Yes, '70s did have a lot of other issues. Um, we could have several shows on that one, but let's talk about Houston. Houston is going to be the big favorite. Initial conversations. The pros for Houston, it's got several million people in the metro area. It's just a massive market. It's the biggest market that the NHL has not tapped yet. They did have a team in the '70s when the World Hockey League were the Houston Aeros. Um, they've had trouble keeping the Houston Aeros open, but a lot of that is because there is so much competition in the Houston metro area for the sports dollar. So you're talking about you got your football, you've got NBA, you even have a Major League Soccer team. You got the Astros for baseball. There are a lot of competition for the sports dollar there that a minor league team gets kind of short shrift. Um, so the but I think if you get a major league team there that is semi successful, you can do really well with the Houston market. Again, the cons are that they do have all those teams um, that you are going to be competing, and you need to have a successful team right out of the gate to keep those fans in the seats and be able to understand to be able to build that fan base. Because if you drop a crap team, and I think the NHL's learned this with the expansion, which is why Seattle and Vegas were so good out of the gate. At least Seattle year two was good out of the gate. Um, that the you're building in the fan base right away. If you put a franchise and you screw them with not really good players, and they flop for several years. Eventually, the fans are going to start losing interest and stop coming. That's what happened with Atlanta. That happened to Nashville for a period of time. It happened to Columbus for a period of time, and then you're talking about these cities getting the franchises being in trouble. Um, Now, Columbus is doing better. The Nashville Predators are doing better now that they've got better teams, or at least have had better teams since their founding. Um, but yeah, that's with Houston. Of these 4 cities, I would say my favorite would be for Kansas City to get a team. Um, it would make the most sense. It would set them up for success, not having to compete with an NBA team. Um, for those 42 dates, because the NBA has the same length of schedule. Houston has been on a little bit of a downturn with as far as their basketball team is, but they've got a built-in fan base right now. And if you're not good out of the gate, then it's going to be hard for you to convert some of those fans to give their dollars to you rather than continuing to spend on the Houston Rockets. So, um, but Kansas City, yeah, you've got the Chiefs, but Chiefs are once a week. Yeah, that's all you got to compete with them for. So, I think it makes much more sense for and the Royals have been so bad for so long. I mean, yeah, they did win the World Series in the mid 2010s, but they more often than not they're not a good team. So, having to outcompete them for people, is not as hard of an ask if you bring in a good team. And let's say anybody who gets to the Arizona Coyotes, are gonna be set up if they can manage it right, the number of draft picks they have over the next, several seasons, the number of draft picks they've made, um, solid players. This is a team that's gonna be on the rise. It's gonna be kinda like when Quebec moved from Quebec to Colorado. They had that last year in Quebec where they actually won their division, got swept in the first round by the Rangers, but they won their division, and then they moved to Denver. And then you know what happened when they went to Denver because the when they got to Denver became the Avalanche. That first year they won the Stanley Cup, and they won another Stanley Cup 3 seasons later. So um, very successful franchise there in Denver. So whoever gets the Arizona Coyotes, I think that city is going to be set up for a team that's going to bring success fairly quickly. So, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on the expansion as far as that goes. Now, I did say let's talk about some things with these other cities. And reason why I put those as the top expansion cities mainly is because of the location. I don't think the NHL wants to relocate a team that would cause them to do divisional realignment. Um, if you put them in the East, then you're talking. Are you going to ask the Detroit Red Wings to move again? The Red Wings fought so hard to get back to the Eastern Conference. Columbus is not going to want to do it. Are you going to ask one of the Florida teams, Carolina? It's hard to pick which team in the East would move to the West to balance it out. They just finally got the league balanced out with the Seattle Kraken coming in. Um, so I don't think you're gonna see the franchise move out of that central area of the country. So, and then Canada doesn't have any cities in the central part of their country that really would meet the criteria to have support a team like that, like a massive American city could. So, but I will say, once they decide what happens with the Arizona Coyotes, they're going to do expansion again. And I know some hockey purists are going to roll their eyes. Hockey owners know how much money they got out of Vegas and Seattle. They got a mint out of those teams. They share that revenue amongst the teams. Everyone broke off a big chunk by allowing 2 new teams to come in the league. They're gonna expand by 4. They're gonna open it up again to, um, get another 4 teams into the league, and you're gonna see some of these names come up again. I do think that at that point, they try and bring a Quebec City team in, brand new. Um, I think at that point, you're kinda playing with cities that have a little bit lesser population. I do think Atlanta goes back into the conversation as far as getting a new team. Hartford, again, Harvard needs to. I don't know, Jasper. Do they have an arena that can support 18,000 for hockey? I mean, I think they have a decent arena for the Yukon basketball team. Um, the other thing with Hartford that I pointed out when I was talking about them being a doubtful team for the relocation of the Coyotes is that they're smack dab between, Boston and the New York teams, and will the New York teams and Boston allow a team to move into kind of their, quote, unquote, "territory"? Because that is, um yeah, I mean, I think they would need to build a brand new arena for a hockey team to be able to lure a hockey team in, um, but I think each division will get a new team in the next round of uh, expansion. So, the Atlantic Division gets Quebec. The Metro Division, perhaps you could talk about Hartford, but I'm going to say probably Atlanta. And then we would go out to the West. So, a Central Division team that I could see coming in would be either whoever doesn't get the team out of Houston, Milwaukee, Kansas City, or Austin. I think Austin is a very good dark horse. And then either Portland, that's probably my favorite, is Portland or Salt Lake City getting one in the Pacific Division. That's what I'm looking at when it comes to where do these teams go and what happens with expansion when we go up to 36 teams. Yeah, I mean the problem. Well, I mean the reason why the Hurricanes left was they wanted a new arena. They had their arena at like a mall or something like that. So um, uh, if they can get a new arena there in Hartford, they can get themselves into the conversation. Again, it's going to be dependent on whether they're going to get a lot of pushback from the existing teams in that area. Um, but yeah, I think Atlanta goes to the Metro. I mean, you could make a case for Atlanta into the Atlantic, and then you know instead of Quebec City, you say Hartford into the Metro. Um, but I think you keep Atlanta with Carolina. It's a natural rivalry. Um, or maybe you just do completely new divisions. I don't know. We'll see. Um, but anyway, that's the news there. In other news, um, let's actually talk about the conference finals. So we've had one team actually punch their ticket into the Stanley Cup Finals. That is the Florida Panthers. They won the Eastern Conference Final 4 games to none. For for a sweep, there were some really good games there. I mean, there's the game one epic 3-2 in 4 overtimes. Almost made it through the complete fourth overtime, like 12 seconds left. Kachuk scores, and this is a theme of the series. Kachuk scores in the overtime to win the game. Um, then Florida goes into game two, wins it 2-1 in overtime. Again, Kachuk scores to win the game. Game three, Sam Reinhart scored the only goal of the game. Bob Roski went a long time with before giving up a goal. He did give up some goals in the second and third period of the game four, but Matthew Tkachuk once again 3 games in this series, he scores the game-winning goal. This time, not in overtime. He does play the hero with 4.5 seconds left in the game. So Um, I'm going to blame the Boston Bruins. I said this to my friend Dan. I'm blaming the Boston Bruins. They turned on Good Bob and turned on Matthew Tkachuk beast mode because he is crazy. Um, he's everything that as advertised. It took Florida a long time to kind of gel into a team. Um, it was touch and go. My Sabres finished like a point behind the Panthers. Um, they barely make the playoffs, and yeah, I'm blaming the Bruins because they turned it on. They flipped that switch. Game 4, game 5, somewhere in there, they flipped the switch and allowed the Panthers to become good. They couldn't close out that series. They had 3 games to 1 series lead. So the blame does have to go to them. I'm sorry, Jasper. But, uh, man, this is a buzzsaw team right now. That was a very impressive win. Um, uh, as I feared for the Carolina Hurricanes throughout the playoffs was, they lost. They lost Fetchnikov. They lost Pacioretty, who was their big acquisition that they wanted to, get back right before the season. Um, where was the scoring going to come for the Carolina Hurricanes? They were able to get through 2 series, really hardcore defensive series um, versus the Islanders and the Devils, but then just didn't have the scoring to get past the Carolina Hurricanes. It was or about past the Florida Panthers. I mean, they put up a hell of an effort. I mean, 2 long overtime games, one game that almost went to overtime, but all of them were one-goal games and, took Herculean efforts to win those games. So, um, Carolina's not that far off. If they had Svechnikov and Pacioretty in that lineup, I think that we're talking about a different and at least I would say that we're still talking about this series as a current series. And right now it's done. So um the big controversy last night was that the Florida Panthers touched the conference final trophy. There's always a big debate as to whether you touch that trophy or not. Some players are superstitious that if you touch the trophy, you're not going to win the Stanley Cup final. Uh, Sasha Barkov was very hands-on with the trophy. They carried it over to the bench. You could see the players touching it while they were right before they took the photograph last night. So we'll see if that works for them. And if Vegas touches the trophy, it may be a moot point. Whoever wins wins. So, um, but yeah, it was a good series for being a sweep. Um, I know a lot of people have been complaining about the lack of competitiveness because they see oh, Florida won again, Vegas won again, Florida won again, Vegas won again. Where's the competitiveness? This series was competitive. It just the same team won every game. They were just a little bit better than the Carolina Hurricanes, and they get to skate for Lord Stanley's mug, starting next week sometime. Be interested to see how fast we can start these finals. Because let's take a look at the Western Conference Finals. Tonight is Game 4. We could have the Stanley Cup matchup by the end of the evening tonight. Um, so Vegas is up 3 games to none, and much like the other series, except for the last game, this has been fairly competitive. Vegas won 4-3 in overtime. Vegas has won 3-2 in overtime in the first 2 games, and then game 3 was just a dumpster fire for the Dallas Stars. From uh, the first however many seconds it took to score the first goal to the cross checking penalty, which we'll talk about here in a minute. It was just an ugly night for and that wasn't a pun, but it was an ugly night for the Dallas Stars. No stars shown that night. That was an intentional pun. But let's see. You got the Rose Garden in Norwich and Groton Hockey Rink in Groton. Yeah, it just depends on how big those are and what kind of amenities those arenas have. You need to have something with I don't in Mohegan, the Mohegan Casino there in Connecticut. I wonder if the arena there would be conducive um, to hockey, and could they host a team out there? Um, that would be an interesting. I Bet Rivers Casino in uh, Pittsburgh funded a lot of the. Okay, that's the Rose Garden. Okay, yeah, if they've got the amenities in that arena, that's another thing with these new arenas, they've got so many private boxes and food options and uh, you know really catering to the high end customers. Um, it would make sense for a team to be at the Mohegan Sun Casino. Um, as much as the NHL has gotten into bed with the casino industry, that would be yeah, um, yeah. So, uh, again, if Hartford can get a team, I mean, if they could I mean, yeah, it would play at Mohegan Sun, but if you can resurrect the Whalers, which to me is one of the all-time greatest hockey jerseys of all time, um, I'm all for it. But again, I think the New York teams are gonna. I think the New York teams are gonna put a kibosh on that. So, um, but anyway, finishing up with the Dallas Vegas series, um, uh, competitive games. Vegas is full value for their 3-0 lead, though. Even in the games that were close that went to overtime, I thought Vegas was the better team. Jack Eichel has played lights out. Um, uh, Marchessault's played lights out. The guys that need to score for the Vegas Golden Knights are scoring right now. I am shocked at how little pressure the Dallas Stars are putting on Aiden Hill. I don't think Aiden Hill's a his Cup Finals quality goaltender, um, but he's 60 minutes away from putting a team in the Cup Finals. Yeah, um, can't even remember the other guy's name that he replaced. Brossois, Laurent Brossois, got him a lot of the way there, but Aiden Hill has won a couple games of the last series and 3 consecutive games of this series, so he's yet to lose in the playoffs. So could get to the Stanley Cup Finals. And that would, as a Sabres fan, this is kind of the nightmare scenario because this is the 2021 Buffalo Sabres Stanley Cup Final because on one side you got Sam Reinhart, you got Brandon Montour, you've got Eric Stahl. All three were on that team, and then on the other side you've got Jack Eichel, and then you've got a couple other former Sabres, Braden McNabb on Buffalo and or on Vegas, and Will Carrier. Um, so it's going to be a tough finals either way. Um, of course, our history with Dallas as a Buffalo Sabres fan. I've kind of forgiven Dallas for the whole Brett Hull and the skate stuff. If they won the Stanley Cup this year, I wouldn't have minded it. Um, but yeah, looks like we're going to get Sam Reinhart versus Jack Eichel in the Stanley Cup Finals, unless the Dallas Stars can pull 2004 Boston Red Sox and come all the way back and win this thing. So, um, but yeah, that yeah, crew, yeah, it's it's a rough thing. I think this is just kind of the prelude though for Buffalo. I got all the faith in the world for Buffalo moving forward. The pieces are starting to come together. Um, let's talk about uh, the other dumb thing from this series, in game 3, the reason why it becomes 4-0, is that the captain of the Dallas Stars just had a complete brain fart on the ice, um, just after Vegas had scored early to take a 1-0 lead. Um, yeah, yeah. we'll move on. We'll get past this. But, yeah, Jamie Benn, uh, knocks down Mark Stone, the captain of the Vegas Golden Knights, and then proceeds to drop a cross check on the face of Mark Stone. Mark Stone, let's remember that Mark Stone just came back at the beginning of the playoffs from neck surgery. Um, this was a vicious, brutal attack. He got in response, the NHL, well, he was kicked out of the game, got a 5 minute major. Vegas scored one of their goals on that 5 minute major. And so, you know, they were down a skater, then they had a couple injuries. They were down like a complete line by the end of that game. Um, Dadonov was injured, and then another forward got kicked out. No, it was Max Domi got kicked out later in the game. Um, but Yeah, it was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and Dallas completely outshot Vegas. Vegas, once they got up 4-0, they just kinda played defense, rope-a-dope defense, and there was nothing that, Dallas could do. Like, they just looked completely impotent in that game, and now, after the game, the NHL hands down a two-game suspension for, Jamie Benn, so he'll be out. If Dallas doesn't win tonight, he gets the first game of next season is on the bench as well. So um, we'll see what happens if Dallas can use this as something to rally with. But yeah, losing your captain for uh, the better part of 3 games is not a good thing for your team. I remember uh, how Colorado excoriated Nazem Kadri for his dumb actions the year before they won the cup. They got knocked out because he took a 6 game suspension for just doing a dumb hit in the middle of the playoffs. Um, it wasn't even necessary. It was on a team they were beating in that game that they ended up sweeping. There was no reason for him to take that penalty. Um, and he took a lot of slings and arrows for what he did there. And I think Jamie Benn will have to do the same thing because Jamie Benn has been kind of, I think, an inconsistent player for the Dallas Stars, especially over the last couple seasons. The owners called him out at points. I don't know how much longer he's got in Dallas based off of his play. Dallas can do what the Bruins did when our captain wasn't around. Talk to the team from. Yeah, I think that Bergie was a lot more. It means a lot more to the Boston Bruins than Ben does to the Dallas Stars. But I don't know who the Dallas Stars bring in. The Boston Bruins this year just had a plethora of players to bring in and out of the lineup. I don't know what the Dallas Stars bring in. I don't know if there's like this, can't miss kid because they've already brought up, Wyatt Johnston. He's played almost all season. Um, is there a prospect that maybe playing in the well, the Texas Stars are already eliminated, so they have somebody in the AHL. Do they have a guy that's Canadian juniors that they could bring in? I don't know. Um, I think it gets put to bed tonight, and then we have our finals set. And I'm not sure when the finals will start if Dallas wins tonight, because Dallas will be. Let's see. Well, the series could have gone all the way to March 31st. So next Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Um, my guess is that they'll probably start it sometime either Sunday, which might be a quick turnaround, might be a little too quick turnaround, or Tuesday, and that makes a little bit more sense. You go with a Tuesday, Thursday, uh, Saturday Stanley Cup final rotation, and then maybe do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then have a Sunday uh, game 7 if necessary. Um, but yeah, this round is meant that they can speed up the clock, and then the end of the season comes, and then we get into silly season prepping for the draft. This, this may be the probably third to last episode of the show this year. We're going to do a TikTok only draft special. I might go to Twitch as well. if I can figure out how to broadcast both. Um, but yeah, we're gonna do a draft special, but that's pretty much it. There's not much hockey left, but there is hockey going on in Europe. So we can talk about that. The World Championships are going on in Riga, Latvia, and Tappara, Sweden, Tappara, Finland. Um, the co-host cities. Um, been a very entertaining. I got to see some of my Sabres play. Alex Tuck is on Team USA. Peyton Krebs and who else is on? Jack Quinn. They're on Team Canada. Oh, Devin Leo's on Team Canada. And then JJ Paterka is playing the um, uh, for the Germans. And JJ is dynamite. In fact, JJ is the third leading scorer in this tournament. 5 goals, 5 assists in 8 games, as Germany is in the semifinals. So, um, but yeah, the World Championships have been very entertaining. Uh, the United States has blown through this tournament, and this is not an indicator that they're going to win this entire thing, but they've done really well. Rocco Grimaldi, Tynan, I hadn't even heard of this dude before. Tynan um, is second leading scorer in the tournament, um, but he has played really well. Cutter Gauthier has played really, really well. Um, and the U.S. went through the preliminary rounds 7-0. I think they did have a overtime win there, and they have a different point system than the NHL. There's um, 3 points for a win, 2 points for overtime or shootout win. There's 1 point for an overtime loss, and then if you lose in regulation, 0 points. Um, So it's a different format. The US like 6-1-0 is their record. Um, it was a good preliminary round for them. They finished first in their group A. Um, they played Czechia today in the quarterfinals. They won 3-0 over them. So they'll be taking on that's written down somewhere. Let's see. U.S. is playing Germany. Uh, Germany, um, Germany beat the Group B winners, which was not Canada. Canada was in Group B, but they didn't win the group. They beat Switzerland. Switzerland won Group B. Canada had a little bit of a rough go there for about 48 hours. Canada lost to Norway in a shootout and Switzerland in regulation. Therefore, 1-1. Um, and Switzerland won that group by 4 points. Canada finished second. They beat the co-host Finland today 3-1, and Latvia was able to secure the hope for Latvia going into the tournament was not get relegated, maybe make the medal rounds, but that's just gravy. Just don't get relegated. Um, but they've won some really good games. Beat Czechia. They and today they upset Sweden. And so both the big Nordic countries are out, and it's going to be the semifinals are going to be U.S. versus Germany, and then Canada versus Latvia. Canada knocked off Finland. So I think not tomorrow, but the next day is when the semifinals go. Don't sleep on Germany. U.S. has kind of blown through this tournament. I would not sleep on Germany at this point because JJ Paterka is playing awesome. But they've got a good team, and they played twice already. They played the first game of the tournament against Germany, and it was a close matchup. They played a preliminary, like exhibition game against Germany, and it was a very tight game as well. I think both were 1 goal games. So I always, when it comes to medal rounds, if you played a team and beat them, I almost always give the team that was beat in the preliminary rounds the advantage because, they know what they need to improve to win the game. I do think that the United States is much more talented from top to bottom on their roster, but you know, the U.S. has a history, especially in the World Championships. This is probably the tournament they struggle the most with. Um, they do have a history of just flaming out against weaker opponents in the middle round. So, if they can get past Germany, then they get either Canada, likely, or Latvia, unlikely. But that would be an awesome matchup. That would be very passionate. Watched any Latvia games, their fans bring it every time. I don't know if the finals in Latvia or Finland, but um, if it's in Latvia, it's going to be a wild environment. But, I think the semifinal for Canada, is gonna be against Latvia in Latvia, in Riga, and it will be a packed house, and the Canadians, for one of the very few times in their, hockey history overseas, are going to be incredibly outnumbered in the arena. So, um, the cool thing about this tournament that I love about the World Championships is that they have promotion and relegation. So I talked about how Latvia was not wanting to get relegated this time. Well, two teams did get relegated out of this tournament. The first time in a few years they had stopped relegation due to COVID, but Hungary and Slovenia were relegated. I don't think either team had a win in the tournament or didn't have enough. They may have had like a overtime win that didn't give as many points. But both are relegated. They go down to Division 1A. They'll have to win Division 1A to earn promotion again. But coming up next season are going to be Great Britain, which is Britain doesn't have a great history with hockey. So it's kind of cool to see a new team come up. And then Poland. So Poland's going to be coming up to play in the top division next season. So exciting to see that when it comes to that. Um, and then just a couple mentions on the Sabres beat. Like I said, JJ Peterka is on fire, leading Team Germany deep into the World Championships, 5 goals, 5 assists in 8 games. Um, uh, this tournament can be a launching pad for players. Andrew Mangiapane from the Calgary Flames, before he had his breakout season, had a really good tournament. Last year, Dylan Cousins had a really good tournament and kind of used that as a launching pad for this season. Um, but I'm looking forward to seeing JJ Peterka in year two in the NHL to see what kind of growth he got from playing in an elite tournament like this. Um, Kyle Okposo signed a 1-year deal. I'm glad to have him back. I wasn't keen. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's taking a roster spot from a young player." Sabres have young players in spades. They'll get their chance. They're young players for a reason. They're young. Um, the team does need veteran leadership, and I do like. I hope they sign Zemgus Girgensons again because I think um, a lot of times that line, Girgensons, Okposo, and either Yost or someone else, um, was probably the most consistent effort line, and you need that. You need that to show the other young lines. Sometimes they played with Peyton Krebs, and Krebs had some of his best hockey playing with that line because it developed a aspect to his game that not everybody knew. He didn't know he was a physical banger that can throw punches. So I'm glad to have Okposo back for another season, and we'll see him probably wearing the C again next season. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the Sabres pass it off to somebody like Tuck or maybe even Dylan Cousins or Darlene. We'll see what happens with that. Sabres did sign defensive prospect Vsevolov Komarov to an entry level deal. He'd been playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Russian defenseman, 6'2", right shot. A little bit of beef on the back end. That's going to be one of the things that Buffalo's got the guys who can score and guys who can skate it, and I think Komarov can skate it, but he's got a little bit of physical grit to his game. So looking forward to that. He'll probably start the season in well, he's 19 years old. Depends on when he turns 20. If he turns 20 before the start of the season, he can start the season down in Rochester. So, and then Matt Savoy, first round pick from that had been playing out in the Western Hockey League. His team got eliminated. He was signed to a professional tryout with the or amateur try. I don't know what the hell they call it in the AHL, but he is playing for the Rochester Americans. The Rochester Americans are in the Eastern Conference Finals of the AHL Calder Cup playoffs. Um, Very exciting to see them do their thing. And, this is just kind of that growth of these young players like Yuri Kulik, Isaac Roseanne, um, who else? Matthew Marsh. I mean, there's a lot of good young players there on that Rochester Americans. The playoffs started out rough for them. They went down 2 games in a best of 5 series. They were down 2 games to none to Syracuse. I thought this was going to be another America's playoff flameout, and they've run off. They ran off 3 games in that series. They ran off 3 games against Toronto Marlies. Um, so 7 in a row. Game 1, they beat the Hershey Bears. So can they keep it going tonight? We'll see. Anyway, I think that's it for the night. Uh, I, if anybody has anything, feel free to reach out to me. But next week, we'll be talking about the Stanley Cup Finals, whether we've gotten a game or two in or not. We'll see. The only chance that doesn't happen is if the Stars make a miraculous comeback, and then we'll be talking about Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. But I'm expecting this to be Dallas or Vegas and Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals next week, um, and looking forward to it. So thanks everyone for watching us. Thank you, Jasper, for your comments. It was great to talk to you tonight. Thanks. Give us likes, shares, subscribes on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, whatever you're watching out. I really appreciate it. From there, um, on the Tick of Talk, thank you for watching us. Give us a couple likes. And if you're not a follower, follow me. If you can see, I've got a little follower goal. I'm at 4839 followers and I want 5,000. So if you're not following me, follow me. Once I get to 5,000, I'm starting a cult. So it'll be based on hockey and fart jokes. So, anyway, thanks everybody for watching us, and we will talk to you all next week.